How many words should I write in the IELTS essay? Now, this is something that a lot of students ask me. It says at least 250 words. Now, if you go over 250 words and you write 300 words, for example, or 320 words, or 340 words, whatever it is, as long as you have used the language correctly and you are not just writing for the sake of writing, just to fill the space and to make things longer, and everything that you say makes sense within the structure of the essay, then there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you have time to do that. However, the objective really is for you to do a minimum of 250 words. In 250 words, you can realistically answer the question with a well-structured, logical response, correct grammar, vocabulary. So 250 is the minimum. Anything else is if you need it, but you shouldn't be aiming to write as much as possible. Spend about 40 minutes on it. Remember that you've also got task 1 to complete. 2 common problems in the exam are problem number 1, not enough words. Less than 250 words might lower your band score, and the reason is you might not explain your ideas well enough. So if you use, for example, 180 words, it's very, very, very difficult to expand on your ideas and explain things properly. Problem number 2, too many words. As I said before, if you write too many words, you might lower your band score. You might be using too many words, or you might be trying to express too much information and run out of time in the exam. The longer your essay is, the more probability you have of making grammar and vocabulary mistakes. Now, this is something that you need to take into consideration. It's a tactical decision to keep your words as low as possible. So 250, 300, 320, that's fine. Some of the examples for example, in my IELTS essay samples book are 350 words, 370 words, but I've only done that to show you different options and to show you the language that you can use. You should be aiming for anything from 250 to 300 words ideally. If you write too many words in task 2, you will have less time to complete task 1. Remember, while you're practicing and you're sitting down at home, you can write 350 words, 400 words. However, when you get to the exam, you have 40 minutes, and that includes your planning time and thinking and any kind of error correction at the end. So you need to be very, very, very tactical about how you respond to the question. Pay attention to sentence structures. These are very important in the exam. Every sentence has its own purpose. There should be no sentences in your essay that serve no purpose and that are just there to fill space. Treat each sentence like gold. Plan your sentences. You need to make sure that every piece of your essay fits together like a puzzle. Be concise. As I said before, don't fall into the trap of trying to make every sentence longer and more complicated for no reason. Write your essay like a human being is going to read it. Remember that the examiner is a human being. You need to write for a human being to be able to understand, see your ideas, see the logic behind everything that you're explaining and how you've explained it, and the structure basically. Common mistakes in the IELTS essay. Don't use ... and don't use etc. when you're writing lists. It looks lazy, it looks like you haven't bothered to think things through and you haven't bothered to write it correctly. This is all fine. It's fine if you're writing a semi-formal email, if you're writing an informal email, if you're writing a note, that's absolutely fine. If you're writing an instruction manual, that's absolutely fine. But when you're writing an academic essay, you should not write etc. and you should not use ... Write lists like this. So you say A and B, A, B, and C, or A, B, C, and D. An example. Some of the biggest issues humanity faces at the moment are pollution, poverty, disease, and global warming. Don't use question marks. This is another common mistake. Don't ask the reader any questions in your essay. Don't start your essay by saying, what can we do about global warming? This is not the time or the place to be asking the reader questions. This is an academic essay. For example, what's the best way to reduce pollution in developing countries? Don't ask the examiner this question. You'd be surprised at how many students who haven't prepared properly for the exam start the essay with a question. It's not the right time or place. And don't use exclamation marks, and definitely don't use 100 exclamation marks like I've just done here. For example, it's probably true to say that on the whole we use too much plastic! Exclamation. This is not the right tone for the essay. Use formal English. Use an increasing number of for countable nouns, or an increasing amount of for uncountable nouns. This just means more, basically. But it's a more formal, complete way of expressing it. Instead of writing, more businesses are paying attention to climate and sustainability issues, you could use an increasing number of businesses are paying attention to climate and sustainability issues. Add significantly more to express a lot more, or significant to mean quite a lot. For example, significantly more businesses are paying attention to climate and sustainability issues instead of quite a lot more businesses. A significant number of businesses are paying attention to climate and sustainability issues, or a sizable number of businesses are paying attention to climate and sustainability issues instead of quite a lot more businesses or quite a lot of businesses or a lot of businesses. Use a growing number of for countable or a growing amount of for uncountable. So this just means more and more, basically. So instead of saying more and more businesses are paying attention to climate and sustainability issues, you can say a growing number of businesses are paying attention to climate and sustainability issues. Using but, and because at the beginning of a sentence. Avoid starting a sentence with but or and. Use furthermore, in addition, instead of and. Use however instead of but. Use since or as a result instead of because. There are instances when you can start a formal or semi-formal sentence with because, but the options above are a lot better. Using because in a sentence at the beginning is very uncommon when it comes to formal writing, and it's a little bit difficult to fit it in properly. So if you're not sure, just use as a result or since or due to the fact that, something like that. The first sentence of each body paragraph. The first sentence of each body paragraph should tell the examiner what he or she is going to read in the paragraph. But you need to be general. You can't start by trying to say everything in the first sentence. Most and almost. Most is an adjective meaning the largest quantity, or the largest amount, or the largest degree, or the largest number of. Followed by a noun, prepositional phrase, or adjective. Most proponents of climate change, for example. The most beneficial solution. In most cases. Most of my peers. These are all examples of how we could use it. Almost is an adverb meaning nearly or not completely. There are almost 700 million people living in extreme poverty according to the World Bank. Almost 10% of the world's population lives in extreme poverty according to the World Bank. Rookie errors. Articles, a, an, and no article. Subject-verb agreement. Singular plural. Countable and uncountable nouns. Learn how to use them in English and pay close attention when you're writing. If you are a member of the course, of the private course, you can review the Rookie Errors module in the Advanced IELTS Writing course. And this is the link to a special discount. If you're not a member of the course, you can get a very special discount here for being part of our free webinar sessions. It's www.ieltsmasterclassonline.com/secret writing course discount. Avoid personal opinions in the body paragraphs. I think, I believe, in my opinion. Only for introduction and conclusion, usually. Now, you can use them, sometimes you can use them in a body paragraph. There's no rule about this. However, if you overdo it, it becomes a very, very informal essay. In general, in academic writing, you should never use things like I think and I believe and in my opinion, because it's not usually accepted in academic writing. However, in IELTS academic even, you can get away with saying, in my opinion, I think, I believe, as long as you keep it within the introduction and the conclusion, because often you're asked for your opinion in many instances, and although there are other ways of expressing your opinion without using these words, these are the easiest to use. As I said, this is a general rule and does not mean you will automatically lose marks if you break it. Use impersonal opinions in the body paragraphs. Some people believe that, others argue that, there are those who claim that. These are some examples of what you can use. It's probably true to say that. It is probably true to say that, blah, blah, blah. Nobody would dispute the fact that, blah, blah, blah. This one is something that you could use for an absolute truth, something that is always true, or something that people believe to always be true. A global perspective. Essay questions are asked from a global perspective usually. Avoid relating the essay questions only to your country or only to your personal experiences unless the question tells you to do so. When the question says, provide examples from your own experiences, for example, what they mean is that you should connect your own experience to a global perspective. So if you often observe that, for example, people enjoy eating junk food, if you see that a lot of people that you know enjoy eating junk food, instead of saying, all my friends like junk food, you need to present that from a global perspective. So you could say, many people around the world enjoy junk food. It's a simple switch. You're just applying your own experience as a sample and using it to talk about common behaviours. Use your personal experiences, but present them in a global perspective. It should be about the world in general. Instead of factories in my city release toxic waste into the river, but the government does nothing to stop them, you could say factories across the world release toxic waste into the river or into water supplies, but many governments are unable to stop them. Because you can assume that this is a problem that happens in other countries as well, or in other areas as well. Okay? Start body paragraphs and conclusions with linking words and transitional phrases. Keep your sentences short and well linked. You will get marks for organisation if you do this right. For example, firstly, secondly, thirdly. On the one hand and on the other hand. To sum up. Avoid contractions. Avoid contractions in your essay. This is fine for a semi-formal email. It's fine for like a work email or a newsletter or something like that, or even a book, a training manual. It's absolutely fine. You're not supposed to never use contractions, but it's not the right context when you're writing an academic essay for an exam. For example, wouldn't needs to be expressed as would not. Couldn't, could not. Mightn't, might not. Effect and affect. Now this is just a small little extra that I've given you here. Effect is the noun, affect is the verb. Now this is something that even native speakers get confused with sometimes. If you're trying to use affect, the verb, this affects. So for example, toxic waste in the rivers affects local fishing, for example. You need to use affect as a verb with an A in that case. The effects of global warming are very damaging in the long term. Effects as a noun with an E. Personal pronouns. Keep personal pronouns out of the essay body paragraphs if you can. You should delete or rephrase them. So me, you, I, we, us. You can rephrase it as workers, inhabitants, businesses, young people, students, people, society, whatever it is that you're talking about. Now this has two effects. The first one is that you're making your essay more formal, which is appropriate for the academic essay. Whether it's the IELTS General or the IELTS Academic exam, it needs to be formal. The second thing is it shows the examiner that you know the vocabulary of what you're talking about, and it helps with organisation. It refers the examiner back to the main focus of the essay. For example, instead of if I study at university, I will have more career opportunities, you could say if people, or if young people, or if students study at university, they will have more career opportunities. Be realistic in your language. Unless you are presenting a 100% fact like water begins to boil at 100 degrees C, make sure your sentences show that you understand that what you say is not always true in every case. Avoid using words like all, every, none, only, always, never, totally, and completely. Be careful with this language. For example, when people start a new job, they feel anxious. You're assuming that everybody feels anxious. You're not expressing that it does not apply in all cases. So you should say, many people feel anxious when they start a new job. That's an option for you there. All students need help with accommodation when they start at university. This is another sentence that is talking about all students like they are all in the same situation. You need to express that you understand that not all students are in the same financial situation. It should be something like this. A large number of, or many, students need help with accommodation when they start at university. So a large number of students need help with accommodation when they start at university, or many students need help with accommodation when they start at university. Avoid using thing. For example, instead of when students get their first job, they are able to learn many new things, be more specific and show the examiner what you're talking about, and show the examiner that you have the vocabulary to write the sentence with more specificity. Right, when students get their first job, they are able to learn many new skills, because we're talking about skills here, such as, and now you're given an example to make it even more specific and to show the examiner that you know more vocabulary. Time management, interpersonal communication, and goal setting. So not only have you expanded the sentence here by giving more details, being more specific, you've also shown the examiner that you know all the vocabulary that you need to know here. Okay, now this is just an example. It can be applied to any different type of topic. You are avoiding the word thing, which is vague, and you're giving specific examples. That's the benefit.